This is crazy news. Google makes its first official post about Keeta. We also are just a couple of days away from the SALT conference, and we are near all-time highs, or at least local highs, for the Keeta coin. So lots of really interesting things going on today that I wanted to talk about, just because we're at, in my opinion, a pretty crucial point from a macro level. But if we look at the micro level, we're sitting in an okay position. We could see price dip a little bit, it'd be okay. We could see price pump a little bit, and it wouldn't necessarily be anything super special or crazy. So we're going to be looking through all of that today. So if you are interested, you find all this content helpful, of course you can go ahead and hit the thumbs up, as well as subscribe to the channel, and then you can hit the notification bell to stay tuned for more updates. So anyway, moving along, we can take a look at crypto bubbles, and we can see here a pretty greenish day overall. Obviously, we do have some reds here and there, but it is a relatively decent day in the market for altcoins. If we do look at the week, though, we have a kind of officially turned red. We did see a little bit of a pullback over the past kind of week or so after an absolutely insane move to the upside. If we look at the month, you can see here a lot of just really major moves for some coins. Obviously, we do have some reds here and there, but you can see things like OKB, Athena, Mantle, Conflux, Arrow, Hex, Saros, even ETH up 30%. I mean, we've seen some pretty impressive moves to the upside here. So definitely still been a good month, even though we have seen some kind of retracing. This is not a kind of up only season yet, as is kind of obvious. There is still a way to definitely pick some winners here in this market. So obviously, we'll be talking more about this later. You'll notice that Keeta is not in this because this is only the top 100. I think Keeta is like 250-ish or something like that, which kind of speaks to the upside, particularly to see Google tweeting about a crypto coin that is not even within the top 100. Pretty impressive if you ask me. So we'll go ahead and we could take a look at the Keeta price here. And we can see, as I mentioned, we got really close kind of to this local top here. Well, honestly, we could probably even move this up to like that. It's probably where. But you can see almost getting up to those kind of recent highs after a pretty decent move back to the downside. But we could see couldn't quite get past it. Right now, we are kind of pulling back just a little bit. I think that, again, as I mentioned, not really kind of the end of the world here. We can see that probably this level is probably kind of the next level at which we could start to see some resistance or some support, excuse me. You can see that we did kind of see that happen already. We saw some wicking down and then some bouncing back up. Now you can see we are kind of jumping down a little bit. There is a world in which you can see we've been following this trend line fairly closely. So there is a world in which maybe we bounce around and then we start to kind of follow this trend line back up, as we'd kind of seen through here. So again, anything possible here in the crypto market, but this is something that I would be taking a fairly close look at. If we do break below this, and more importantly, if we do break below this, relatively bad news for Keeta in the short term, but not necessarily having any major impacts in the long term. Again, this is a project that's still very early in. It's still in testnet. We'll again talk about that here in 1 second, but it's still in testnet. So a lot of this is just primarily driven on hype and kind of initial narratives. So if we do break through, not necessarily the end of the world, but we obviously would need several narrative catalysts to kind of reset us onto a path that kind of made sense and that was looking good for us. So as we could see, though, I want to show you kind of why I don't think this makes a huge deal, at least for right now, is because obviously we do have a decent bit of kind of some padding, I guess we could say, in either direction. We're at about $1.36 right now. We are essentially kind of, nothing's too crazy until we break about $1.72 to the upside. And realistically, even kind of like worst case right now, anything above $1.15, obviously this kind of scales up with time, but at least as of right now, anything above about $1.15, still looking totally fine. So, but this is important because if you look here at the exchange liquidation maps, you can see there's a lot of indecision in the market currently. You can see here on the 1 day, we got about 1.99 billion in shorts, about 1.95 billion in longs, so almost perfectly even. But if we look at the 7 day, you can see a little bit of a bias moving towards shorts with about 9.27 to the upside and about 6.45 to the downside. However, we're seeing a little bit of the opposite going on here on the 30 day with about 13.15 billion in the downside or longs, and then we can see about 8.84 billion in the upside or liquidating shorts. So a lot of indecision here currently in the market. Lots of people playing things a lot of different ways, and so we'll have to be very careful to kind of see what happens. One thing that I've kind of been maintaining for weeks at this point is there is still a huge amount of liquidity in a relatively small downside move that I think we could see get flushed. Now you can see here, if we even just went down to 115,300, that's $5 billion in liquidity that gets liquidated essentially, right? So, I mean, this is a very large move. And I think if we saw this type of liquidity flush, it would do two things. Obviously, it would liquidate a ton of money, but then it would also probably start piling in shorts because so much money is getting liquidated to the downside. And then we would start to see this kind of flip again. And then we could see, you know, at least the 7 and 30 days start to make a little bit more sense in terms of alignment. You could see here again, if we went to about the same price, about almost 4 billion liquidated here on the 7-day as well. And so you could see, you know, those would definitely really start to be showing a move to the upside, liquidating shorts, at least being where all of the money would be from an exchange perspective. And then on the 1 day, if we saw again something similar here, we'd be looking at close to about, you know, 1.25 billion. So lots and lots of money to be liquidated, even if we just see a relatively small move to the downside. So definitely take a close look here. Make sure that you're not going too crazy, long or short, because there is still so much liquidity to either direction. So, you know, we could see kind of a really volatile day where we see a swing up, liquidate about $1 billion, swing down, liquidate about another $1 billion, and then, you know, all in one hard day's work for the market makers. So just be very careful there. But like with this, we could see, you know, if we see a big swing up or a big swing down, we could see potentially a correlated swing out of Keeta. But the thing is we have some buffer here. So it's not the end of the world. Like I said, short of falling below about $1.15 or above $1.72, the structure is still kind of largely held here for Keeta. So it's still looking pretty decent, at least in my mind. If you are interested, of course, in trading Keeta, they do have it listed here on BloFin. I do have a link to BloFin in the description below. If you are interested, BloFin is a great place to be trading. They do a whole bunch of different kind of like limited time trading competitions. They have a whole bunch of limited time sign up bonuses, and they also do have, or at least I also do have, that algorithmic trading bot also in the link in the description, where you can essentially trade Bitcoin completely automatically, and then it will sit there. It uses essentially like a grid trading algorithm, so it'll buy when price goes down, it'll sell when price goes up, and then over time, obviously, kind of the theory being that it will make decent bits of money with a lower adjusted kind of risk premium, which I think is pretty cool. So if you are interested, of course, I do have all those links in the description below, as well as that link to BTCC with a fantastic offer of 10% bonuses on first time deposits if you are interested. Now, moving along, we had one, or I guess probably the big news of the day here, which is Google Cloud officially posting about Keeta. You can see here, Keeta processes 11 million blockchain transactions per second with Spanner. Keeta Network chose Spanner for its availability and elastic scalability, allowing teams to scale up or down as needed without downtime, costly over provisioning, or risky manual admin. Google Cloud, and then this essentially like leading to the actual the post here. So, you know, Google Cloud blog topics, blah 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 blah. So really obviously insane news here for Keeta. This is also insane news for Google. Essentially, they're trying to help use Keeta to kind of boost their like blockchain capability, essentially with Google Cloud. So I do think showing this type of thing, maybe when Keeta moves to a mainnet launch, they may show Google as kind of like an official partner, which of course would be insanely major news. So we'd have to kind of see how that goes. But this is of course huge news in itself. You know, we could see that Keeta, very, very small project, already getting attention from very large kind of cloud providers like Google. I mean, that's pretty big, and I think we could see something pretty crazy happen if we see Keeta essentially kind of continue to be very closely connected to Google, and we start to see institutions coming on. Again, as we do know, Keeta is where networks connect, right? So even if there are other blockchain networks or other institutional networks or private chains, anything like that, Keeta could be used to essentially connect them all, right? So I think that Keeta positioned in a very, very interesting position, and we could see this potentially go quite well over the next little while. Here we have Keeta Crypto essentially kind of giving us a little bit of a kind of a highlight reel of all the things of why Keeta is really in a great time to be maybe DCAing, maybe starting a position. Again, this is not financial advice on my end. This is just me kind of talking about the highlight reel, as I mentioned, of kind of what we've got from Keeta so far. So you can see here the Google Cloud Post, which is obviously linked here below. And then we can see Tyler Shank confirming that 40% of supply will never be sold on the open market. Keeta Network is a sponsor and a speaker of the SALT conference, which again, this happens in 2 days. So it'll be really interesting to see if there's any sort of kind of movement coming from what's going on the SALT conference. And then we can see the Nielsen report, it had a mention here. So, you know, that'll be interesting to see. Again, a relatively small account, so maybe not going to move millions or anything, but definitely a really interesting, like, you know, essentially this is like, I mean, read right here, the most respected source of news and data about the credit card, debit card, prepaid card, and mobile payment industries. So definitely kind of an industry specific type of niche, which I think is a good thing to be recognized and mentioned by a project like that. And then you can see here we've got the mainnet roadmap with 2 steps to go. And that takes me kind of to the next piece that I want to kind of wrap the video on, which is of course the Keeta site itself. You can see here they are just on testnet right now. If you are interested and you want to check out the Keeta network, I mean, there's basically no reason not to when you're using the testnet, right? You can go to the faucet, you can get yourself some free coins, you can, you know, mess around with the wallet, mess around with the Explorer, see how you like it, see how it kind of feels, and give it a chance and test it out yourself. Because I think that's kind of the big thing that builds conviction, is if you actually use something, or you at least kind of understand theoretically how it works, it helps build a ton of conviction because you personally know what it's supposed to do, how it works, all of that type of good stuff. So feel free to go over to the website, Keeta.com. You can test it out on the testnet. Also, you can find all the resources here, from the SDK documentation to just normal documentation, as well as the white paper. So be really interesting to see kind of what happens over the next several months. But I think Keeta definitely in a position, we see this all the time from very, very small projects. They're in a position where they're in testnet. They haven't really launched yet. They've got some really, really large backing. But again, it's boring. Nobody's paying attention. Nobody really wants to be patient and wait, right? When we start to see mainnet come out, when we start to see institutional partnerships, when we start to see people on board, this is all what propels the price further and further and brings Keeta from a top 300 coin into a top 100 coin or things like that, right? Of course, it does pay to be early. Now, of course, there is a level of risk additional to that, because nothing always works out perfectly, right? I mean, there are several stumbling blocks at which they could potentially be, you know, set back along the way. But there's so much opportunity in terms of upside here that I think we could see a really, really interesting move. So hopefully you found the information in this video useful. If you did, maybe you even want to see a price prediction video, maybe you want to see some other types of videos about Keeta, feel free to drop those in the comment section below. I'd be interested to hear kind of your thoughts about, you know, if you like it, what you're seeing here, all this type of good stuff. I'd be interested to know. Also, I'm wearing an Arsenal jersey in support of the first weekend of the Premier League. Let me know, did I make a good choice? Should I have picked a different jersey? All that type of good stuff. But yeah, also feel free, like I said, any questions, comments, thoughts, feelings, anything like that, just drop those in the comment section below. I do really enjoy reading and responding to all of those, as well as feel free, if you found the information in this video useful, like, subscribe, all that type of good stuff. It does, of course, help me out. And you can stay up to date with all things Keeta, all things altcoins, all the things going on within the crypto market. We try to keep really good up to speed in terms of like what is actually happening and things that we could or should be doing to make sure that we're staying responsible and kind of flexible with what's going on within the crypto market. Anyway, thank you all for tuning in. We'll see you in the next one.